Hi there, Paul Thomson here from Spitfire Audio. I'm very excited today to be able to show you Ólafur Arnalds Stratus. 3 years in the making and culminating in Ólafur's hugely successful album, Remember. This is an innovative use of Ólafur's 2-player pianos and some bespoke software design. If you want to look at the overview and learn about the genesis of this project, then check out linked below Ólafur's overview of the whole thing. But for now, we're going to look at our innovative UI, which gives you 3 dimensions of control over all of these fantastic sounds that Ólafur personally curated. Let's dive straight in and I can show you the sound of Stratus. So what's going on here? Well, there are a huge number of differently designed performances, mini performances. So on each note, for example, you get a specific performance like that. Now, if you look at the UI, you'll see that we have 8 rows. Currently, I'm just using 4 of the rows, so I'm just playing 4-note polyphony, but you can increase that very easily, and I'll show you that in a minute. Each of these cells represents a different performance style, and you'll see as we go deeper into this, you'll see that how they change. For example, if I click here on cell 5 in row 1, you can see that we've got a slightly faster sound. This is actually a triplet compared to the duple time of the first 4 cells. But as you go across, the sounds become increasingly complex. Now you'll also notice that differently from our Evo grid, the way that this works is you are assigning notes as you play them. And as usual, it's incredibly easy to select like a whole row so that all of the sounds match up. Check this out. Or equally, simply click here to randomize the matrix. Now you'll also see here there is an option to randomize over time. This gives you either the option to randomize the grid every a certain number of beats, or if you uncheck the sync to BPM, it's every certain number of seconds, and you can change that number quite easily there. Let's pull that down to 6 beats. We're at 120 BPM. It'll lock to the tempo of your DAW. And we'll start the randomize and we'll just have a little play. So you can see that that gives you a really fascinating way to add in a certain amount of uncertainty and randomness to the way that you're performing. But you don't have to do that. It is possible to get an incredibly detailed amount of and level of control over the exact sounds that you're hearing. One other thing that's incredibly useful is there is a piano overlay. Now, if we go to one of the slightly more rhythmically complex waves, and we turn up the volume of the piano overlay, you'll hear that every time we hit a note, we are triggering a 3rd piano, which currently is panned in the center. You'll see that here you're able to change the attack and release, so you're able to shorten these waves and not let them kind of really play out to their fullest extent. And also incredibly easy to change the polyphony. So if we go for 8 polyphony, randomize the matrix, just to have a quick listen to something that we've got, maybe turn the piano overlay down a little bit. In the effects panel, there's also some incredibly useful effects in here for adding extra delays as well, adding chorus, reverb, convolution reverb. There's some fantastic plate reverbs from Ólafur's own plate, and also some of the Earth Factory reverbs in there as well. So that's incredibly useful. Finally, you have some options in the settings menu which give you further control, but check out the How It Works video for more detail on that. The second one has similar kinds of rhythms, but instead of waving, so very smoothly growing up and falling away, these are harder starts to the sound. So let's check this one out. And again, if we turn up the polyphony here and we randomize the whole matrix, this gives you a different kind of performance style. So now I can play something that's a little bit more rhythmic and have these fantastic kind of scattering trails behind. And again, if you want to accent the first note that you're actually playing of each pattern, you just whack up the piano overlay. And again, you can be really precise about the way that you select these trails to get exactly the kind of effect that you want. Now, what about rhythmic stuff? There's a huge amount of tempo synced rhythmic stuff in the library. I'm going to look at some of the looped rhythms here, first of all, and you'll notice that something about the UI has changed, and I'll come to that in a minute. Let's just play a couple of chords. You'll see here that there's a quantize on the input, which will help you if you want to just kind of have your track playing along in your DAW, and then you just want to be changing notes, then the software will automatically sync the next note that you play to the next 8th note of your track, which will make it very much easier for you to keep everything in time. You'll see that here each of the cells has 2 possible states, signified by the increasing increments of the circle which are being drawn. I'll show you what the difference is. So let's look at the first state. And now let's look at the second state. And that's really interesting when we start to mix these up, even within a single pattern, a single vertical pattern. Really useful. And as you can see, if you don't want to go in and design and you want to just be kind of inspired by the sounds, again, you can go back to our randomize. It will randomize not only the matrix, but it will also randomize the actual states of each cell in the matrix as well. And again, you can set those to evolve over time or randomize over time. So if we set evolve over time active, then if you watch these cells, they change. And they change according to the time, either in beats or seconds, that you've set within the UI here. Now the final piano matrix here, as you can see, has an even greater degree of controllability. Each of these cells has 5 possible states. Now if I play a chord using just the first column here, now what's going on here? Well, we can set all of these to the first state, and you can hear what's going on in the performance for each of these in the first states, each of these swarms. Have a listen. Now if we set them all to the third state and play the same chord, and finally the fifth state, so as you can hear, increasing degrees of complexity are starting to happen. Now what about if we look at just going towards the right hand side on the matrix? You'll see that we've got a different style of swarm, and if you look in the manual you'll see exactly what each of these are. But I'm going to show you a couple of chords here on just using this fourth column. And now the sixth column. So giving you a huge amount of control over the type of sound and the type of swell, the amount of randomness that's going on within the pattern. Now we've got these two at the end, which are, as the symbol kind of suggests, a hard start, and they sound like this. Within the controls, you can see a couple of new controls here as well. You can either set these to just be a kind of one-shot swarm. So there will be a performed swarm that Ólafur has programmed into each of these sounds for each cell and for each variation of each cell. And that will either just play as a one-shot, or you can set it to loop round, so you can have these very, very gradually evolving and hugely complex kind of things going on. In combination with, of course, the ability to either evolve the grid to change the state of all of the cells that you've selected while leaving the cells in place, or indeed to randomize the cells over time as well. So let's just randomize there and just play something. And if I play that last chord the other direction, I spread it upwards. If I spread it downwards, then you can hear, you get a different kind of performance and a different sort of sound and feel from the grid. And this is part of what gives it this extraordinary power, is the fact that you're not just selecting by note range as we do in the general Evo grid. You're selecting according to the order of the notes that you play. It's also possible, for the sharp-eyed amongst you will have noticed the little dice here, to randomize the effects and get some interesting effects that way. So let's look at the first of our two synth matrix patches. This one is looped rhythms, and has loops created using Olafar's PS3100 and also his Juno. As before, there's an option to randomize the matrix, but also you've got this option here for low note priority. In other words, and you'll see that the low note has taken priority on the first line of the grid, so you can always determine what's going to happen with the lowest part. Again, it's really easy and simple to just pick and design each individual sound so that you can get everything doing the same thing like this. Or we can just go in and kind of click around and make our own little soup. Now we also have in here the final matrix is the synth matrix for swarms, and this again is just wonderful. Check this out. I could sit and listen to this all day. It is so inspirational. It's just amazing. I'm sorry being so effusive, but it's just really, really fantastic. Let's randomize the matrix. In fact, I'm going to set randomize over time as well. And let's see what we get doing this. Just so lovely, and you can hear how the software intelligently kind of very slowly fades out the existing cell and fades in the new cell as your note changes from one cell to another. Really very, very interesting way of controlling the sounds that you're playing. And it gives you that thing, you're just not going to feel like you're hearing the same thing again and again. It's always going to give you some new kind of evolving texture. Really, really beautiful sound creation tool. Now, what else do we have in here? We've got our usual advanced folder, so I'm not going to go into that. You can always check out the How It Works videos put together by our amazing support team to find out more detail about the individual controls, or a really great manual for this. But I'm going to look in the warps folder. Now, what is this? Here we have our Mercury engine, and we've created some warp sounds as we do, using some outboard, using some software, all kinds of different things. And there's some really fabulous stuff in here as well. So I'm going to have a quick blast through a few of these, my favorite sounds. Now I'm just going to play you the vanilla sounds, but you've got the enormous amount of power and control within the engine here, the Mercury synth engine, all of these kind of different wobbles, you know, these different kind of modulation abilities, but also lots of great effects you can patch on. And we've got all of these, but even going through to some great bass sounds. So some really creative tools in here to add something absolutely unique and new to your tracks. I hope you're going to really enjoy using this. I think it's a wonderful creation, the kind of thing that only Ólafur could have come up with, really. And I just love using it, and I'm sure that you are going to as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye.